Chris Bowen right now is at that big United Nations climate conference in Brazil, telling them Australia's red hot for cutting our emissions to net zero by 2050. What a phony. Now, it's true the Albanese government's energy and climate change minister is a total phony, in my opinion, because I've just seen two documents, which I'll now show you. One shows this bloke talks about cutting emissions, but doesn't, and the other is a list of all the people Bowen has taken to Brazil. Hundreds of them. And when I show these documents to you, this is the list of all the Australians there, you realise that you've been duped. Duped by people like Bowen, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, almost all the big climate catastrophists, all of them playing a big game of let's pretend. Let's pretend Australia going net zero is going to change the world's climate. And let's even pretend we are cutting emissions. Document number one is this graphic. Liberal governments, yes, they were cutting emissions. But then suddenly the Albanese government comes in 3.5 years ago and it stops. Almost no significant cuts to our emissions in 4 years. Last year emissions even went up. And these are the guys now claiming they'll cut emissions to zero net in just 25 years and slamming the Liberals for calling an end to this net zero hoax. Listen to Bowen's bull.
The Liberal Party is so out of touch.
And now to this second document. It really is laughable. It shows just how few climate preachers from Chris Bowen down are really serious about cutting emissions. So Bowen has gone to Brazil, all the way to Brazil, to this climate conference, and look at the enormous number of people he's taken with them. 495 of them. At Bowen, there's 496, which makes up the 8th biggest delegation at the conference. And all of them flying a huge distance in aeroplanes using lots of fossil fuels. You'll be asking, who on earth are all these people? How can so many Australians be needed at this UN conference? What can they all be doing? And shouldn't they actually stay at home instead of stinking up the world with their global warming emissions flying over there? And if you are asking, who are these people? You are asking the right person, because I've checked. This provisional list of delegates that was submitted to the conference organisers. Now, there's the usual gaggle of federal and state politicians, even mayors, and Green Senator Hanson Young, a planet saver that you might have thought would have been embarrassed to fly all that distance to Brazil instead of logging in on Sky from her office or something. There's bureaucrats, climate extremists, Greenpeace and people like that, which you might have also expected, along with big emitters such as BHP's there, and people employed by billionaire miner Andrew Forrest, the climate alarmist who's falsely claimed, I'm going to save Australia with green hydrogen, only to work out it was all too expensive and scrapping the lot. But then there were other people you might never have expected to make this huge crowd of 496 climate crusaders over in Brazil. Now, there are people that were expected to come from Australia. Maybe some have pulled out, but this list includes people including Surfers for Climate, Pimlico State High School, the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, other schools and groups, because you've got to indoctrinate those kids somehow, plus the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Project, which is strange when its real job, of course, is supposed to be stopping suicides of Aborigines back home. Personally, speaking for me, I would have thought it could have used its donations more practically right here at home. What are the South Australian police doing at the climate conference in Brazil? Chasing crooks there? I don't think so. Also in Brazil with Bowen, climate writers, whatever that is, the Uniting Church, I guess they're looking for a new god, lots of Aboriginal groups, lots more, like the Western Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation, the Indigenous Peoples Organisation Australia, and the Indigenous Desert Alliance. which to me shows how climate change for many at this conference is actually a revolt against the modern, a revolt against the West, a revolt against colonialists. But all those Aboriginal delegates at least served as a prop for Bowen to show the world at this conference how woke he is, how into identity politics and this new tribalism.
Thank you, Mr. President. I begin by reaffirming Australia's commitment to the inclusion of First Nations people in our climate change response and clean energy future.
About these delegates. Do you know there's someone here actually in Brazil from Australia at this conference from an organisation called Oranges and Sardines Foundation. I kid you not. Now, Oranges and Sardines normally funds out their arts projects, but it seems, well, maybe the climate catastrophe really is another big entertainment for the elites. I mean, seriously, this is mad, isn't it? Saving the planet from our emissions by themselves flying to Brazil. To do what? And who's paying for it all? And the worst of it is that Bowen's speech in Brazil was all about the Albanese government wanting to hold another version of this same UN conference next year in Adelaide, called COP31 this time.
In hosting COP31, we want to bring the world to our region to see the impacts of climate change and bring the world's best innovators and businesses to invest in solutions.
So Bowen wants to hold the next one of these clown shows in Australia, despite the government itself figuring that that would cost us more than $1 billion. $1 billion. An obscene waste of money for what clearly is a circus, an indulgence, a gassy party of the hypocritical left. There was a rule I read about, years ago now. I'll take global warming seriously when the people telling us to panic act like it really is serious.